Hello, dear friends. We are discussing various life processes, and in this series, now we are discussing one of the most interesting topic, and that is transportation in plants. We have discussed transportation in animals, especially in human being, and how this heart is a pumping organ, developing certain kind of pressure. As a result, the transporting fluid like blood and lymph moves through the body, of course through the vessels, and transport a material in and out. But what is the case in case of plants? What is the machinery that push this material which is needed by the plants and which is produced by the plant to and fro? Regarding the smaller plants, we can think that there are certain theories which are explaining diffusion and osmosis can brings about transportation of material. But what about the plant which grows up to 110 meters like eucalyptus, like sequoia? And therefore it's very interesting to study all these aspects of the transportation in plants. In this aspect we have to focus to understand the pathway, particularly the structural aspect of this transportation and the mechanism of transportation. Suppose when we talk about transportation, we know that the plants require carbon dioxide for photosynthesis and where oxygen is released. So this exchange of gases during photosynthesis takes place by simple diffusion. Similarly, plants also perform respiration where oxygen is taken in and CO2 is released out. So this exchange of gases during respiration is also by diffusion. Then the plants also require water. The water absorbed from the soil. Soil is a major source in case of terrestrial plants. In case of aquatic plant, of course, as they are growing in water, the general body surface is absorbing water. Of course, the mechanism is the diffusion osmosis. When we talk about the absorption and transport of minerals, as we know that the soil is a rich source of these minerals, these are absorbed in the form of dissolved form, in the form of solution dissolved in water, and then with the help of roots they are absorbed and transported in upward direction. If the distance is smaller, it's okay, the diffusion and osmosis can work. But as I discussed in the beginning, that if the distance is considerably very big or very far, like 110 meters tall plants, tall from the soil level, and their root system is still deeper, can you imagine that much distance has to be moved by the particles of the substances, and therefore it's very interesting to understand and study the mechanism behind it. And therefore in this aspect, in the transportation of plants, try to understand, friends, we are going to discuss some of the aspects that we have to understand in this. Okay, so in plants also there need a proper system of transportation, and what is that mechanism and what is that system we are discussing in this. So we have studied in the last year or earlier standard that in plants the water and mineral is transported through very special type of tissue. It's a complex tissue that we called as xylem. Yeah, xylem consisting tracheids and vessels. These are the hollow cell like structures placed one above the other. As you can see here, these are the xylem tracheids and vessels. They are placed end to end and forming the hollow tube like structures. As they are the dead cells having no cytoplasm and nucleus in them, they are like a pipe. Similarly, the phloem is meant for transport of the organic food like sugars dissolved in water, amino acids, and so. Of course, they are synthesized by the leaves. So here you can see that it is a phloem where the flow is from upper side to downward side. Okay, so when the leaves are producing the food, it is being transported through the phloem, and the roots absorb water and mineral, it is transported through this xylem. Okay, so that is the matter we have studied last time. Then as we know that the plants do not move, okay, because they are synthesizing at a specific place, because with the help of light they are synthesizing their food. But these plants need energy, okay, and because they do not move, they need less amount of energy also. So how these plants are doing all these things, that is the mechanism we are going to discuss is okay. uh, Plant transport system consisting the structural element like xylem and the phloem. As xylem moves water and minerals obtained from the soil to the other parts, and the phloem transport the food material. Okay, here in this particular diagram you have to focus the channel of the transport of water, in specially particularly transport of water, how it is taking place. In xylem tissue, vessels and tracheids of the roots, you can see this is the transverse section of the root system. Here it is a root hair. Student friend, try to understand that root hairs are actually the principal organs of water absorption, because they are actually physically exposed to the water of the soil, and when water enters into these root hairs, from here they move across this cortical tissue, then there is endodermis, then this is a xylem of the root which is connected to the xylem of the stem, which is directly connected to the xylem of the leaf. So there is a continuous column of a xylem tissue. Of course, tracheids and vessels, these are the dead cells which are placed end to end, forming a continuous pipe-like structure. Okay, so root cells are actually in contact with the soil, water and ions. Now what happens in the roots, actually in the root cells, the concentration of cell sap is higher as compared to the water outside, and therefore simply by the movement of the osmotic phenomena, or this water moves from the area of higher water potential to the area of lower water potential, and therefore water enters into the roots. This is the first entry. Of course, before that imbibition occurs, and that what is imbibition? It is attraction of water towards the root hairs by the cellulose and the pectin, the hygroscopic substances, they are impregnated on the root hairs. So imbibition attract water toward the root hairs, and this is the osmotic phenomena by which then water enters into the root hairs. Thousands and thousands of very fine, delicate, single celled hairs, root hairs are present along the roots. They are absorbing water, and once the water is absorbed, it is transported across the cortical cell, enters into the xylem of the roots, and the xylem of root is connected with the xylem of the stem, then it goes to the xylem of the leaves, and of course through that each and every cell of the leaf is getting water. So this is the continuity of water column that we have to understand. So we understood the path, that how water is transported in upward direction, but what we have to understand? We have to understand the mechanism. In this diagram also you can see this is a vessel where you can see there is a transfer wall. These two vessels are placed end to end, and there is a pore through which it is being transported. This is a tracheid. The end walls are tracheids are perforated, and these two tracheids are attached end to end at their transfer wall, inclined wall, but they are having perforation, and therefore the conduction path is continuous. Okay, so these are actually the conducting strands which are conducting water and minerals upward direction. Okay, so there are various theories proposed time to time. One theory which explains the upward movement of water and mineral is called as root pressure theory, and according to that root pressure theory, which is also called as vital theory, the water once enter into the cortical cells of the roots, the cortical cells become saturated with the water, they become turgid, and because of the turgidity they create a pressure, a kind of pressure on the wall of tracheids and vessels. As a result, water is pushed upward. So this was one of the theories. In some lower plant it may be possibly occurring that particular way, the transport of the water, but in taller plant it is not possible, because when the scientists measure the root pressure in some of the plant, it found very less. It is 1 to 3 atmosphere, by virtue of which water can be conducted up to 10 to 15 feet and so. What about the taller plants? Moreover, when root pressure was measured in gymnospermic plant, No root pressure has been observed. During rainy season, root pressure is very high, while in case of summer, root pressure is found to be low. On the contrary, the plants need more water during the summer, and because of that, root pressure theory was in objection, and therefore some other theories were proposed. One of the theories also there which was being proposed by Boehm, that was called as capillarity theory. But in all these theories, no one theory could explain the transport of water in taller plants. Then it was Dixon and Joly. They came forward and they proposed one of the most interesting theory which explained the upward movement of the water, and that theory is called as transpiration pull theory. Basically, there are two aspects we have to understand. It is a pull mechanism by virtue of which water is pulled up, like what we pull the water from the well. Okay, but this type of force has been developed by the phenomena that we called as transpiration. And what is that transpiration? We have studied, friends, that transpiration is a loss of water in the form of water vapors from the aerial parts of the plant, especially during the day, is called as transpiration. So a kind of loss of water through the stomata, through cuticle sometime. So that we called as transpiration pull. And that what this theory explains? It explains that the upward movement of conduction of the water takes place up to considerable heights in plants with the help of a force developed by transpiration. This theory is based on four important principles that we have to understand. The first principle is the adhesive force. Now, what is adhesive force? The force of attraction between two dissimilar substances. Okay, unlike molecules. As we know that tracheids and vessels are the element through which water is conducted. The water and the wall of the tracheids and vessel, they are having a kind of attractive force in between them, and that we call as adhesive force. Okay, because you know that wall is also made up of lignin. Okay, and lignin is a hygroscopic substance, so water is having attraction toward that wall, and therefore they are having a certain kind of adhesion with each other. Then there is another principle that we call as cohesive force. It is the force of attraction between the molecule of the same substance. The force of attraction between water molecule, between the two water molecules, or between the all water molecules, they are having tremendous cohesive force. It is called tensile strength of the water. It is tremendous. These two molecules of the water, they are adhered, they are attached with each other at such a high pressure or high force that it is very difficult to separate them. And because of these two forces, try to understand, for example, if it is a tracheid and then there is a water. Okay, imagine, then when there is a water moving in upward direction, these water molecules are having a force of attraction toward the cell wall as well as between them, and because of this they form a continuous water column in all these tracheids. There is another trachea, for example here it is trachea. Okay, there is another trachea, there could be another trachea lower side. So there is a continuous water column that forms in that tracheids and vessel from roots to the stem to the leaves. So got it now? So this continuous water column is formed due to cohesive and adhesive forces, right? Then what are the forces by which this water column moves up or pulled up or pushed up? Then it was being explained by Dixon and Joly correctly, that we call as a negative tension that is produced at the top of the plant in the leaves by the process that we call transpiration, and therefore this mechanism is called as transpiration pull theory. Now how that occurs, that we are going to discuss. See, the loss of water in the form of water vapors from the aerial parts of the plant that we called as transpiration. When the water is lost by the transpiration through the stomata, try to understand now. The stomata are being covered by guard cell. These guard cell lose water. Now these guard cell which are deficient with water, now take the water from their adjacent mesophyll cells. Adjacent mesophyll cells, they become deficient in water, therefore they take water from their adjacent veinlets, smaller veins, and all these smaller veins they go on taking the water from the midrib or mid vein, that is consisting the xylem, okay, of the leaf. So that water is you can say pulled by that kind of force develop in the leaf. So what is the sequence? We have to understand, when the water from the leaves is lost in the form of water vapors through the stomata, the stomatal guard cell absorb water from their adjacent mesophyll cell. Mesophyll cell become deficient of the water, therefore they absorb water from their adjacent cell, and this kind of force develops up to the vein and veinlets. As a result, the water is pulled from the veins and veinlets of the leaves. So each leaf then become deficient with water, which pull the water from the xylem of the stem. And as you can see that the thousands of leaves are present on the plant. All these leaves collectively develop a kind of force, a pulling force, a negative tension, because of which the water is pulled from the stem, or of course the xylem of the stem. This force is continuous on the xylem of the root. The xylem of the root, we draw this water, pull this water from the roots, and that force goes up to the root hairs, and in this way continuously the water is continuously drawn or absorbed through the root hairs, and as a result the water moves up. This is called as transpiration pull theory, that we have to understand. This is the mechanism. In this we can see, as I told you, there are the four principle: force of adhesion, cohesion, continuous water column is formed because of this two, and the transpiration pool which is developed. As you can see here it is a stomata, the water, it is lost in the form of water vapors, and then a kind of force is developed which is pulling this water, which enter from the root hair, then it goes to the cortical cells, then the xylem of the root, then xylem of the stem, then it goes to the leaves, and from the leaves it is loosed outside. This is the reason that actually the scientists have realized that out of the total absorbed water, 99% of the water is lost by the plants. Only 1% water which is absorbed is utilized in metabolism. And this was one of the clue that the Dixon and Jolly got to explain how the transportation of water takes place in upward direction. Okay, so with this note, I request you to please understand it, repeat the video. If you like it, you press the button of like, share this with your friends, comment on it, and please don't forget to subscribe. Okay, till then I say goodbye, take care.